Hey everybody, it is Mike Bruce. As you can see, I cut my hair yesterday, and it looks like I cut my hair yesterday, right? That looks like a man that cut his own hair. So Mike Bruce with Life Starts with Food Health Coaching. I'm finally dipping into the same shirts for more than one time for these interviews. And more importantly, I am here with my friend Corie, who I've spelled her name wrong for the last year, but she's so nice she didn't even mind. And so Corrie's just the coolest, for one. I met Corie when I used to work for Primal Kitchen, and we were at one of the local farm markets, Naturally Sorgles. And Corie created her own paleo. Some of them are keto, but they're all paleo baking mixes for all sorts of things. And we first met the first day she was walking in for her first demo. And I remembered my very first demo and was incredibly nervous. And I hope this is not live the way this looks. Is this what everybody else is seeing live? They won't see it. That sure would be bad news for us if that's the case. If it is, we're gonna have to jump off and come back in maybe.
No, mine's working.
Perfect. So that's oh, look at that. So yeah, my phone's just not a fun one. So so for that delay, that'll be a fun one that I don't cut anything out of these because it's live. What do you care? So so mine and Corey's, thanks for checking that. My first time meeting her, she was super stressed. It was her very first demo for her business. And I know what my very first demo was like for Primal Kitchen. I was at Whole Foods and I stunk. I don't wear deodorant. I normally just handle it just fine. When you have that stinky stress sweat that like, it stinks. It is cat pee stanky, right? Like, I'm not saying right, like, you know this, Corie, you're a lady. You don't know anything.
No.
Yeah, you don't sweat.
I have really good deodorant.
But yeah, that's right.
You never smell.
And it's very natural deodorant too. I like that.
Yeah, it's all natural. It's amazing.
So Corie goes, I don't get how you're so calm and collected. And you're like, you're not stressed at all. And I just went in a very calm manner. Well, I know if I get stressed out, all anybody's going to smell is cat pee today. Because my stress sweat smells horrible. I don't smell ever really for sweat. But
this is where I thought this interview was going to go.
This is perfect. I don't know why you were nervous. So that was our very first meeting, and from then on, we just hit it off. She is like the female version of me, or I'm the male version of her. I don't know which one it is. In terms of a lot of our health journey, but a lot of our knowledge. It's really nice to say something to someone, and they just go, "Oh yeah, I was on that train, 5 months ago. I know all about it. Let's talk, And that's like anything we talk about. We both have a pretty good understanding of it already, which is cool. So Corie, a little bit about you. You kind of had a health journey several years ago, which pushed you in the direction of a paleo-esque solution, low sugar. Because I know you personally are allergic to cane sugar, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then from there on, it's kind of guided you into different routes of like, well, man, I really struggled figuring this stuff out with my family. Somebody else it could be so much easier for somebody else if I help them. And you've kind of found your own niche and your own place in this world, helping others, doing something you love. And I'm telling you, I've seen people just about cry, or maybe I have seen people cry when you're talking to them about food and you hand them a piece of your paleo bread. Like, so
that's the way of my heart.
Yeah, so that's like a really cool thing. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your backstory, whatever you want.
So I have a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old, and my health journey didn't really start until my oldest was about 3 years old. We had some pretty significant unofficial diagnoses that were thrown around, and we ended up flying all over the country. We were at Hopkins doctors. We were at, integrative doctors around the country trying to like come at this from a multi approach. And I'll never forget how overwhelming it was all in the beginning. And now, like fast forward, like once you learn something new, looking back, you're like, oh, that wasn't as overwhelming as I thought. But at the time I thought like, the world was caving in and I thought there was nothing we could eat. It turns out that there was a lot of allergies, food intolerances and sensitivities. And so just changing our diet, like we went from Hot Pockets, McDonald's, like that kind of stuff to, okay, you can have vegetables and you can have protein. And I remember like the meal times with my daughter being so stressful and sitting there for hours because she didn't want to touch her vegetables and trying to figure out like, okay, what can I eat more than like greens, like iceberg lettuce? I'm so hungry all the time and I can have lettuce. That's it. So
filling.
I know, it's so wonderful. I remember putting cheese on lettuce and being like, oh wow, I'm splurging today.
Such a splurge.
And I think there's nothing I can eat. And like food, I think is a love language. I love food. I always have. I grew up in a family where like homemade food. I grew up on a beef farm. My mom made homemade bread every day. We would get fresh like tomatoes out of the garden. Like food was like the center of everything.
I didn't know you grew up on a beef farm.
Yeah. So
oh, man.
It was my father's farm that he grew up on, and my uncle ended up taking it over, and we lived on that farm with, it was a large 350 acre farm. So there were houses and everything there. And so that's where we grew up, in the country on a farm. Spent the days hiking in the woods and like getting lost in nature and playing in barns and rolling down fields and staring at stars. Okay, so anyway, I'm going off the.
It's a good childhood. I had a very similar childhood with my grandparents, and every single day involved me crying at some point because I got a crab apple slung at me real hard and hit in the face or something, and we'd have crab apple fights. It was tons of fun.
Yes.
Until you got hit.
Yeah. Wait, so where did you grow up?
I grew up right around where I am, but my grandparents lived in Ohioville, and they had a farm in Ohioville, and we were there almost every day. So
so the farm that we grew up on was like apple trees everywhere, crab apples, like hundreds of varieties.
Cows love them.
Yeah, so even more parallels.
We would sharpen a stick, or just we'd find a broken stick that was like 2 foot long or 3 foot long, and just stab a crab apple, and you whip them.
Oh my gosh, that one hurt so bad.
It's so bad. And everybody was like 5 years older than me, so they were big and muscular versus me.
You couldn't relate. You couldn't get an edge in. You were just there to take a beating.
I'm trying hiding behind a crabapple tree. They're this big. Like,
oh my gosh. So, okay.
So the farm, yeah.
So one of the things that really stood out to me, and I know that I'm kind of all over the place, one of the things that was really amazing to me was how foundational food was in this journey. And no matter where we went, whether it was a mainstream doctor or an integrative doctor or an allergy specialist at Hopkins, they always came back to food and how important food was and what you were putting in your body. And I remember sitting in this allergist office, and my daughter would be sitting at the table drawing inside the lines, and then, he would test her with something. And if it was something she was allergic to, then all of a sudden she was scribbling outside of the lines. She was throwing pennies against the wall. Like, her behavior completely changed based on what was given to her, and if she could tolerate it or not. Yeah. So that was huge. But anyway, fast forward about 15 years and my love for food, I wasn't willing to be told that because there are foods that you can and can't have, that you can't have that cheesecake, or you can't have chocolate brownies, or that you can't have bread. And I grew up on homemade bread. Yeah. And I wanted to be able to send my kids to school with bread that didn't taste like cardboard, that wasn't dry, that didn't fall apart, or when they opened it up, it was just crumbs with a slab of meat.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't happy with the options at the grocery stores. I felt like you paid a lot of money and you always had to give up something, whether there was a hidden ingredient that you didn't like, and or it just didn't taste as good as you wanted it to. So I just started experimenting, and there was a lot of trial and error. I'm more of a creative where I don't like to follow recipes. I like to just dump stuff in a bowl and see what happens.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of like errors, but eventually I I don't want to say I fine-tuned it, because I never really followed a recipe. I just kind of like started understanding what alternative flours did, what characteristics they would add, how if I wanted creamy, I didn't have to add dairy. I could add cashew butter. Or banana or applesauce, like all of these different things that, thinking outside of the box. And so I ended up developing this bread recipe that was phenomenal. And I sent it to school with my girls every single day, all through elementary. And it got to the place where friends and family would be like, oh man, how did you make that without dairy? How did you make that without sugar? And there's no grains in it. And I'd be like, oh, well, here, this is how I made it. And no, they didn't have success. So I would go back to my recipe, and I would really make sure that, like, when I'm making something and dumping it in a bowl, that I'm taking time to measure it, so that I could be like, okay, here's the exact recipe. People still couldn't replicate it. So then I found myself, just to save time, putting all my dry ingredients in baggies and then writing with a Sharpie on the baggie what the wet ingredients were, throwing it in the freezer, so that, I could make something quick for my girls, or I could hand it to my friends and family and be like, just add these ingredients and follow these directions and you'll be able to make it. And then they started having success. So that showed me that just because you give somebody a recipe doesn't mean that they get the final product. So I knew I had something that tasted really good, but I also didn't know if my taste acclimated and I just was used to eating what I ate, or if it was really actually good.
That's totally happened to me. And because I always think, man, this is so stinking good. And sure enough, I give it. Well, here's the other problem: is my family, they are sugar people. Like, not a little bit of sugar, they are a lot of sugar. So, and like my sister, she's real skinny, she's never had a problem with her weight. So she eats all these crazy sugary things, and she tries something of mine. She's like, no, not at all. It's just not right. It's disgusting. And she'll say that in front of people. And it's like, man, that really hurts. And no one else here will touch anything ever again. And they don't. My older brother, he's the same way, but he's a very big guy. He won't. I crushed a pineapple upside down cake this year. Crushed it. I have never gotten so close to my grandfather's recipe before. And it was passed down to me, no one else in the family. I've never gotten so close. And he took a bite. Everybody's loving up on it. And he just goes, it's just not right. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, So it's like our taste has acclimated, and that's a tough one, right? So how did you know that your taste? It wasn't just your taste was acclimated. How did you figure that one out?
Well, going back to what you said before I answer that question, I think that there's a number of factors that go into any given scenario, and I think that you can't convince somebody against their will. I have 2 family members that are that way. Once they make their mind up, it doesn't matter that they won't see it for what it is.
Yeah.
It takes time. And and then
the sad part is how
acclimate. So
yeah.
But eventually with time, I think that, I always tell my girls, you got to try something at least 2 or 3 times before you make a decision about it. And I know I'm the same way. Like, when it comes to seafood and lobster, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think lobsters are pretty much like in the spider family. And so I won't eat a lobster because it's like eating a spider.
That makes sense. I get that.
So we were
I'll eat yours.
My husband and my daughter likes spear fishing, and she was catching lobster. So I had to eat a lobster. I didn't like it.
Mom.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of the taste. It was because of my mental block. And then, as I started eating more and more, I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad. I do kind of like it. And then once I got past the texture and everything else, I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. But I had to get past my mental blocks. I had a preconceived idea.
Yeah.
So I think that when people hear health food or alternative or sugar-free or dairy-free, they automatically go to that place of, well, that's not the real thing. That's weird. You know what I mean? Because we're so programmed to do things out of habit and what we know.
Yeah. And the sad part is, I don't know what causes this in them. Why there's such a reaction, a strong reaction in them that it's actually hurtful when they say it to you. You know what I mean? Because you poured soul into it. It's what made you a better person, not just a better person, but the best person you've ever been. And when you pour your soul into it and you're like, man, I gotta win them over with just one recipe ever, so you keep trying and you keep getting stomped on. And they don't, I don't know if they even know that they say it in a way that's so hurtful, but it is. I mean, Have you had that situation where?
No, I have, and it's funny because my husband's that way. So that might even be part of the reason why it took me so long to step out, because I was trying to win him over, and because food is a love language for me. Like, I want to make him really nice meals that he enjoys, but there's a point where you can't make a separate meal for everybody in your house. You have to fine tune it so that you're making one meal, or you're losing your mind. Like, what kind of life is that to make one meal for this person, another for that, and have all? It's just crazy. So. And then too, like, he travels and he's used to eating at 5-star restaurants. So, like, I have that to deal with.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time because, I am very expressive. Like, if you give me a gift, I will love the fact that you gave me a gift more than what you're actually giving me. And you're going to get a lot of reaction out of me. Yeah. So, like, I almost expect that from somebody else. Like, if somebody made me something and I tasted it, like, I'm going to tell you, like, what I'm experiencing, and you're going to almost get a show. And I don't want to say a show, but like, I'm always looking for that wow factor to know that, like, oh, I really hit home, or he really enjoyed this. And I think the best that I've ever gotten is that's okay. So.
That's okay. That wasn't bad.
So when I stepped out and I actually, like, started putting my product out there, I would almost start crying based on the response that I got, because I was so overwhelmed at the positive response that I got. I was so blown away. But having said that, like, the response I got from my husband only made me try harder, made me fine tune more, because I could have easily settled with something that, was good to me, but could have still been better. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So he's slowly come over to the other side. Like, he slowly, after years and years, he cut sugar out. And I think I told you he lost like 60 pounds, cut his sugar out. He loves my cupcake, recipe. So, like, whenever I make something, the first thing he asks now is it's sugar-free, and he'll actually eat it. Yeah. So he doesn't have to give me that big emotional response. Like, I know that, like,
he's just asking. Yeah. He just wants it, so that's a good thing. So, and you're when you bring samples with you, like, I'm mostly carnivore because of just gut problems. But when I would see you, like, once a month, 1 month I might not have any samples. The next month I would, like, eat half your samples, and it cracked me up. But your whole family, though, is vibrant. I've met your whole family, and they are all glowing. And it's really cool. None of you look your age, or your daughters look their age, but, like, you and your husband do not look your age. So it's a really cool thing. And I won't put it out there that you're 62, because nobody will believe that. So, she's not, but I guarantee she's older than you think, guys. I guarantee that. So,
thank you, Mike.
Something that I wanted to kind of come back to, there's two things I want to come back to. You were saying that your girl, when she was being tested for certain things, your daughter would get cranky whenever she would have a food she was intolerant to. Like, how many people send their kids to school and can't figure out why they get all these terrible phone calls from teachers, but they're sending them with like yogurts with yellow dyes and like fake cheese and just Oreos and all these things that are just garbage, that are all these food intolerances.
Totally affects their behavior, their ability to absorb information, their ability to focus. Yeah. And you said cranky, but, like, food and how it interacts with your body can elicit so many different behaviors and emotions. Much later in my journey, because of what I went through with my girls, I started cleaning up my health, and I found out what was at the root of a lot of the health issues that I had, and food was a big part. Mm-hmm. And much later, I had some testing done, some blood work to get to the bottom of, like, what my intolerances and allergies were. And I'll never forget how, like, right before I had this test, I was eating a pomegranate, and I was having a really good day. And I ate this pomegranate, and then all of a sudden it was like I had a split personality, and I just felt really, like, anxious and like stressed inside. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, how did I go from being okay and enjoying life to now all of a sudden I just feel really angry. I feel really tense, and what is wrong with me? And a few days later I had this test done, and when one of my severe allergies is pomegranate. Wow. So me wonder too, when we see like all of this, anxiety and depression going through the roof, and kids who have ADD and ADHD, because I know I'm the same. Like, I have a really hard time focusing. Like, my head can be in the clouds, but if I eat the wrong thing, then I'm just, it's going to make it almost impossible.
Yeah.
So as I drink my coffee.
Yeah. My entire, I guess my dad's side of the family, all the way up, all the way down to all of us kids, we all have some amount of anxiety, depression, something. I would say I probably have the least to deal with, but when I have to deal with it, it's terrible. And when I was in high school and college and after college, before I found the right foods, I'm telling you, it'd be exactly what you're saying. You wake up one day and you have breakfast and you're like on top of the world, and then boom, you're crashed. That was every day of my life, every day. And I could never figure out what it was. And I love food, so I thought food was helping me, like eating garbage food. I just felt great after it, so I would just keep eating it. But I felt great from the dopamines, and then I'd be depressed some more. And then I'd eat more junk food and, a pint of ice cream every single night or more sometimes. And like, that's worse than a cigarette habit. Like, that's an expensive habit. So when I was eating that way, I was just constantly anxious or depressed or whatever. I was always on edge. I could never control my emotions. And my entire family, they don't quite see that in themselves. My parents are starting to see when they have flare-ups with depression and anxiety or with arthritis and stuff. They're starting to see that now. But they don't see it right away. They come back to me. They're like, "Oh, Mike, I gotta get back to the doctor. My arthritis is acting up again." And I'm like, "You're working on your kitchen. You haven't had real food for 3 weeks. You've been eating bread or sandwiches." And my mom's like, "Oh, yeah, I guess so." And I'm like, "What caused your flare-ups before?" "Bread." And I'm like, "So what are you doing?" She goes, "Well, I've only had a couple. I've only had a few sandwiches." And I'm like, autoimmune issue, that you have one bite is all you need to mess it up. It doesn't need to be sandwiches after sandwich. So people just don't correlate it because they never give their body a long enough time to process.
You can't know what you don't know. I've been fatigued chronically my whole entire life. And when I first found out like what my food intolerance and allergies were, I'll never forget how clear I felt. And even now, even to this day, if I fast, I actually feel better than what I'm eating. But so here's something that I want to clarify. Like, food in itself is not bad. We need, like, what is the root behind all of these allergies and intolerances that we're seeing? Because it is going through the ceiling. There's a lot of things that are continuing on an upward slope. So why? So we got to go back to like where our food is coming from. Has it been altered? GMO, pesticides? Is it organic? These are a big part of what I think why we're seeing like these crazy allergies. Like, even 20 years ago, like your allergies were peanuts. And then dairy came along, and now we have these crazy off the wall allergies like cane sugar, pomegranate.
We should not have a problem with eggs, right?
It's like a gut health issue. And so there's always a number of factors that go into a given scenario, right? So bread in itself is not bad, but over years and over like constant inflammation and pounding against your body of these foods that are not like whole foods that that were altered, I think that we're seeing a lot of these issues that we're talking about. So I know that like back before I started my health journey, if I had watched this, I would have thought, you guys are crazy. Like, what do you want to eat? Like we started out talking about like lettuce. Is that what you want me to eat? That's crazy. But so I wanted to make a differentiation between like food in itself is not bad. It is like what have we done to this food, like as far as and all the other stuff that I brought up and over the years, and then throwing in some other things and other topics that I don't know that we want to get into today, but there's always a number of factors that go into it. So
you and I could have 20 other podcasts on all these things. So
oh my gosh, we go in 20 directions with this.
Yeah. So with food, like with a lot of people I talk to, I tell them like, did this food even exist 50 years ago? And if it's a no, don't eat it. Now, if you do that for a while and that doesn't work for you, go back. Did this food exist 100 years ago? No, then don't eat it. And then all of a sudden you get back 150 years ago and you realize that broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, spinach, these things didn't exist 150 years ago. People that have very serious gut issues cannot even eat cruciferous vegetables. They can eat other vegetables very mildly, sometimes not. But like we have bastardized the system. Even 150 years ago, we took a poisonous mustard plant and we bred it out into what is now considered the biggest health foods in our world. Broccoli, cauliflower. You have to eat these or you're a terrible person. You're a terrible keto person if you don't eat cauliflower, right? And these foods didn't exist 150 years ago. And we think, how? They're plants. But they were a poisonous, toxic plant. And back in Britain, they bred it out. And then we brought it to America, bred it out more. So for some people like myself, those don't have a big part in my diet anymore. And it's crazy. I never thought that would be the case. But the further and further I get in my health, I have to keep cutting, because every time I cut, my body gets to take a break from that toxin. Then when I put it back in, it's just like, dude, no, step back. Something way more fun to move on to. Fun for other people, right? This is fun for us, but I wanted you to talk about a little bit, if you have time, because I know you have a hard break coming up soon, a little bit about how the different flours work, and how you can, like you were saying, you use certain flours in certain combinations. If for people who want to learn how to use these flours, instead of just buying your mix, they're terrific, everybody. When I am going to have almonds, like almond flour and coconut flour in my diet, I am using your stuff now. Like that's what I'm going to use, because you gave us a pizza mix a while back and we haven't got to use it yet, but it's on the schedule probably this week. So what's that?
You're going to love it.
I know. I'm so excited. But what are some of the tips and tricks, like you were mentioning, to make things creamier with like a cashew butter or using banana? So what are the different ways you do this?
So it just really depends on what you're making. So if you want to do something that's creamy and chocolatey, adding like a cashew butter will give you a creaminess. If you're, well, it would actually be better if you gave me a specific question, because.
Okay, so if I want to make, I think we might have talked about this before, and I don't know if you've experimented with this yet. So we'll just go off completely, and we'll just say for a recipe, we'll kind of build a recipe right here using one of your recipes. So we were talking about, like, I can't remember if it was sticky buns or, like the monkey bread is what I always called it growing up.
Yeah.
Have you figured out a recipe for that one yet? Using one of yours?
I think that the pizza dough works really well for that, because the pizza dough is, you can knead it and pull it. It almost has like an elasticity to it, like regular wheat flour would, because wheat flour has gluten in it and it gives it that elasticity. So the pizza dough is like that. And that's what makes my pizza dough different than the other keto pizza doughs on the market. They're usually made with cauliflower and cheese. Mine's an actual dough. So you could do that with the pizza dough. You would roll it out like you would a regular pizza. You would add your toppings. You would roll it back up, and then you would slice it and then put it in the pan the way you would want it, with any toppings that you want, and then you would bake it.
I am so excited right now, because that's like the thing my mom used to make on Christmas Day that I couldn't wait to get up and have. And she would use an angel food cake pan.
Yeah.
And so she would cut it, like she would do what you're doing, then chop it into small things and just pack it all in the pan. Holy cow. I might cancel my pizza day and give that dough to my mom and have her make it.
Yeah. Or you can even make pepperoni rolls. Like, I'm telling you, the pepperoni rolls are pretty good too.
Yeah. Well, we have to find our way back to Whole Foods. That's like the only place we can find decent pepperoni. So that's like, I love that you gave that monkey bread thing. What aside from, so now pepperoni rolls, that's a great option. What about, so that's your pizza dough. Let's do this. I'm going to share the screen, show your website, so that we can talk about the different products you have. Okay. So, and this is a beautiful site, by the way. You have a great site.
Thank you.
Let's go to shop mixes. Like, you have tons of stuff. This is really fun. Your pancake and waffle mix. That's going to be one a lot of people like.
Yeah, the waffles are pretty awesome. My daughters make that on the regular. Like, they'll get up in the morning, they'll make a mix, and be on their way. One of my favorite ways to use the pancake waffle mix is to make waffles and turn it into a chicken sandwich or a lunch or a dinner. You can make phenomenal chicken tenders by just dipping your chicken in egg, adding almond flour, and then like some kind of garlic seasoning, some paprika, spray it with a little bit of oil, put it in the oven on 325, and you will get the most yummy chicken tenders. So we'll make chicken tenders. We'll make sandwiches with the waffles. I've made like, what is the fried dough that you get at like carnivals called?
Like an elephant ear kind of thing?
Yeah, I've literally made those with this.
No way.
So,
what? And that's like a keto recipe, huh? So you probably took powdered erythritol or something, or monk fruit, and shook over.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm most excited about, and I just don't have a lot of time because I'm kind of wearing a lot of hats right now, getting this business off the ground. But one of the things that I'm super excited about is like showing people how versatile these mixes are. Like, for example, last night, my husband and I wanted a chocolate cupcake, but I didn't have any chocolate cupcake mixes, believe it or not. I had a blueberry mix. So what I did was I took my blueberry mix and I added cocoa and I put a little extra oil in it. And it was so good. It was so good. It might even be better than my actual cupcake mix.
So your blueberry mix, does it actually contain like dried blueberries or something?
No, you have to add all of your own whole food ingredients. My mixes are all just the dry ingredients. It takes all the guesswork out of like the different flours and the expensive ingredients. And you basically add like egg, milk, oil, vanilla. And they're all vegan friendly too. So on my packages, I will give you directions on how to make what I call a flax egg. And actually, most of my mixes taste better with flax eggs than actual eggs.
How crazy is that? That's really neat.
Yeah, so they're super versatile. And I'm going to throw in there, we have some new packaging coming out that is off the hook.
Yeah, let me find that. I think it's right here.
Yes.
Look at that. That's beautiful.
Each mix is going to have its own color. You see how the ribbon is going down the front? Each mix is going to have its own color so that you can have a quick visual reference when you go and you see it on the store shelf or in your pantry. You'll know that, like, you know, the green is cupcake, the orange is pumpkin, the yellow is brownie. So, and then too, how amazing is that going to look lined up on your shelf when you have like colors?
Yeah, that looks really cool. I like that a lot. I'm trying to get you in with, I'm trying to get the Health Hut. I would love out in Chippewa and Beaver. I would love them to start carrying your product because they have, they just have a really good following. They have people that really trust them. And if they like your product, they get a lot of movement in their stores for that. So, your food is always so stinking good and you present things so well. So like this right here, you literally bring stuff that looks like that to your demos. It's terrific. You're like, no, this is just how I carry my food, guys. This is I'm slupping it today. This is not fancy.
You know, it's funny about that. The whole reason I came up with that parchment paper wrap is because I don't want to be hauling around dishes. Glass dishes, heavy dishes. I wanted something that, you know, could clean up easy, but it ended up becoming a thing because it looked so cute. And you can almost gift the baked goods that way because it just presents itself really well.
Yeah, it really does. Oh, there's no pictures of pizza on that one. I'm trying to go through the pictures.
Oh.
I think I clicked through all of them though. But yeah, and even just plain old almond flour that you have, that's good. That's really good. So
that's the staple. That's the Corie staple. Like, I think people tend to like overlook it because it's just plain bread. And I think people had so many bad experiences with alternative breads that, you know, they're just hesitant to try it. But that's literally what Corie is built on, is that bread. And once people try it, like, it becomes the basis of their orders. They'll have 3 of those and maybe a couple of the other ones.
And it's so base. I mean, their ingredients are so mild. It's so, there's nothing there. So, and right there you have a paleo keto cheesy garlic bread. That is awesome.
I just posted that.
Oh, nice.
So you make it the same way you do the cinnamon bread. The cinnamon bread is hugely popular. You would just make this bread mix and you would swirl your cinnamon mixture into it, and all the instructions are on the packaging. So this cheesy bread is the same. It's the same concept. You make your cheesy.
There you go. Repeat what you just said. I'm sorry.
Oh, so the cheesy bread, is that right? You dropped off, or?
Yeah, we're back though.
So the cheesy bread is the same concept. You make your cheese mixture, and if you can do dairy, go for it. So you can use real dairy. I always use vegan dairy because I'm allergic to dairy. But you take your cheeses and you mix them together, and you basically swirl it into your batter and you bake it, and then you have this phenomenal cheese bread that you'll be surprised. You'll probably eat the whole loaf when it comes out of the oven.
What do you actually use for this? Because I have trouble finding, there's a lot of vegan cheeses out there. I'm dairy free. So a big cheat for us, we will find like 1 or 2 cheeses that actually does well for us, right? That isn't like horrible, but still not awesome. So what are your recommendations for cheeses? I'll throw them on the post, on the comments over here. And if anybody has questions before she has to go, let's get those questions on here too. So
yeah, I have about 15 minutes left.
Okay.
10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, we don't have to take up all that time, but yeah, what's your favorite cheeses that you use for vegan cheeses that are paleo, mostly paleo?
So there's different ones for different applications. For like an all-around good cheese, I like Daiya cheese. The downfall with Daiya cheese is if you use it as a top layer, it gets crunchy. If you want like that stretchy, like pull apart cheese, melted cheese, you have to layer it between things. So it works really good for lasagna if you layer it between layers.
Yeah. Do they still use soy in there, like a soy protein or something in theirs, or just soy lecithin? I forget what there was something in one of their, because they have several varieties of cheeses and they're always changing ingredients.
Yeah. So, the last I looked, I didn't see soy. So now I'm curious to check the package, because
some will, some won't.
Yeah, I'll have to check the package. I usually get the mozzarella or the cheddar.
Okay, yeah, and like my go-to cheese is Kite Hill, but all they have is cream cheese. But that's how I make my cheesecake recipe.
Yeah, so Kite Hill is another one of my favorites. For the cream
I wish they would come out with an actual string cheese.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm thinking of Mayoko's. Mayoko's has really good cheese too. Mm-hmm. And then Follow Your Heart has the best Parmesan cheese. So there's different brands for different applications. It just depends on what you're looking for. But I would say Kite Hill, Daiya, Mayoko, and then I like the Follow Your Heart Parmesan.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, anytime you guys are going for cheeses, just know what you're allergic to. And if you're allergic to dairy, obviously I avoid cheeses a lot. But when I do make a pizza, we had one, it's a brown label. I know I take a picture of everything. So it's a brown label that we always struggle with cheeses. And it was actually pretty decent. I don't know if it'll come up right now or not. Probably not. So, but it's something I'll post later. But yeah, finding the right cheese when you have a dairy problem, oh my goodness. But have you made that cream cheese recipe I sent you before?
No, I need to.
That's okay. You'll come back to it one day and go.
And I know I have it in my photos, but I have about 10,000 photos on my phone.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's so tasty. So
yeah. Please send it to me again.
Sure. Is there anything you want to leave us all with? And just so you guys know, I threw up the some of the cheese names we were looking at. I didn't put. I think you said Mayogas or something like that. I didn't know how to spell it, so I didn't put that in.
It's MY.
Is that dark packaging, huh?
Yeah, it has like a black label with like white lettering.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's really good.
Yeah. Anything you want to leave us with? So if you guys want to find Corrie's products, you can go on our website, which everything is below in the description of this live video. It is CorEatsMixes.com, CorEatsMixes.com, Corrie Eats Mixes. And you can find her on Facebook and Instagram at the same thing.
Yeah.
But you're not, you said you're not active, but like I was on there today, yesterday, the day before, and there's just stuff all the time on there. You do a good job keeping content flowing so that it looks like you're always active. And that's the trick, right?
So what I did, I don't get on Facebook. It's been so long, but I set up an account on Facebook because it's important to have a presence there. But I set it up so that whenever I use Instagram, whatever I'm posting on Instagram automatically posts on my Facebook account. But to get live information, the best place to go, I mean, you can on Facebook because everything's reposted, but Instagram, or go to my website. And then also you can always email me at corryeatsmixes@gmail.com.
That works. Oh yeah. I have that one down there too. So, and you have a new location, which I'm sure this whole thing has slowed down foot traffic a little bit, I'm sure. But where is that location at?
So we have a physical building location in Ambridge. It's where we manufacture our products. And we actually didn't open up our storefront there. That's going to be this summer that we do that.
Okay.
We've been selling in a lot of local health food stores, which, by the way, I have been talking to Health Hut, but then we went into quarantine and we decided to put it on hold until that was over. But we've been doing a lot of sales online, a lot of sales. So you don't have to go somewhere to buy my mixes. You can just get on my website and they'll be delivered right to your door. And just because this is a very difficult time right now for so many people, we've been offering special promotions every week while we're in quarantine. So every week we have some kind of like amazing offer. This week it's a free bread mix when you order 3 mixes.
You order 3 mixes?
Yep. If you order 3 mixes and you put in the promo code no need, like need the dough, NOKNEAD, you will get a free bread mix. But don't forget to add the bread mix to your cart, because a lot of people don't add the free mix to their cart and then they put the promo code in and they're like, it's not working. You have to actually add the mix to your cart and then use the promo code.
Okay, so add a free bread mix with order of
of
any 3 mixes. Code no need. Be sure to add bread to cart. You like that I'm talking and typing at the same time to make sure my brain's not going 4 directions, so I actually get it right?
I'm really impressed because I don't think I could have done that.
That's why I have to say it out loud. So yeah, that's all you guys have to do, and you guys can get some bread mixes. That's really awesome. And that's for this week, this full week only?
Yep, it started today and it will run through midnight on Sunday.
Nice. And then next week will be something new.
It will be.
Man, Corey, this was super fun. It was so nice to catch up with you. And I'll close out here, but hang on. I'm just going to hit end broadcast. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope you guys get as much from Corey as I do. He's just so much information and so much knowledge here. So thanks, everybody.